the grassroots in terms of individuals who really don't think they got a way forward. So, our focus really is to develop that individual from the point of despair to empowering them into a successful human being.
It's needed.
All right, much needed. All right, especially at the grassroots, because within the grassroots communities, we find that most individuals do not have the support and the environment that's conducive to give them what they need. So our focus is to give them that. Come from the grassroots. If you think of a community centre, the community centre should be the hub and the drive of that community. But so many community centres are not utilised in that way. If I was in despair, whether I'm living in the private sector or social housing, I should be able to come into the heart of my community and get the support that's required to lift me up, especially in terms of enterprise, education, employment. Those are the three key things, right? To take me to the next level. And what that does for the community, it gives the community a better social economic environment, because that way I don't have to leave the community to be able to go and get a better life. So that community centre should be the hub and the heart and the pulse of the community. So the onus is on that community centre to make things work, functional, especially for young people in that environment. And from it can do that, it becomes conducive to the environment. Because most people say, young people ain't doing enough, they ain't doing that, they ain't doing that. But if you've got that and you're listening to the heartbeat and you're creating an environment which can work for them, but at the same time work for you as well. Why does it have to be dependent on the state? That's what most people deal with. It's dependent on the state. It's dependent on state funding.
And that's a downfall.
Absolute downfall. Absolute. There's enough corporations out there that should they be able to get the right talent and willing to pay for it. So cut out the state. I ain't saying we can't have to work with the state, but the state becomes a side thing. I spoke to a guy from the job centre today. I told him to ring me back. I'm still waiting.
So do you think that the state makes people lazy?
Somewhat dependent, yeah. Absolutely. All right? It's dependency. And dependency, we all know what that leads to. Self-sufficiency is the key. All right? Now, for some time, the state has been uttering meritocracy based on the merit that you do. Well, it's a tool. Then you'll switch and Labour might say, okay, we're going to go back and we're going to become more social and human being. I don't really care. I'm non-partisan. I don't really care. What I believe in is the heart of the community. The community dictates the pace of the next generations to come. It's the community that puts down the legacies behind the next generations to come. So if you don't have a good foundation, if you don't have the right social, economic environment to be able to support the youngsters coming through, you lose your community. And that's what's happened in and around us. And then you have the influx of drugs, crime, all kind of issues, multiple issues that drive these situations. Then you've got lots and lots of youngsters thinking, I want to get out of this. And it's a cry for help. I'm going to go and get a degree. What happens? They end up feeling worse off because they've made the effort. Now look at this. The state doesn't finance the graduates so much. And they have the debt. It finances the young offender. All these so-called NGOs move in because there's a social problem. So the social problem becomes the volatility of the community. Although it made me a minority. Knife crime, gun crime, drugs selling on the street, all these kind of issues. And what happens? That becomes the funding state. So everybody comes in, sucks it dry like a poo. And excuse my word, but excrement comes out the other side. But what happens? What happens to the graduate who's gone and taken the time to get himself in debt, to aspire to a better level? Who's supporting that individual? It's missing. So we focus on the graduate, the person who's made the effort to get to the next level. I've worked with young offenders for many, many years. I've written several reports, all right, that have gone against the grain. We know there's an identity crisis there. We don't need to find the solution to it.
Oh my God, I
What
don't
happened?
believe this. It wasn't recorded.
Don't worry, man. We're having a conversation.
This, but then
Huh?
it went off the cameras.
Don't worry about that. We can't finish the conversation. I don't care about the blasted camera. This is my... Do you understand what I'm saying? So what we need to be able to do is to raise it to the next level. Make it happen. You understand? Create the hubs. So what I've focused on, I'm glad it's not on camera because I want this bit to be on camera between me, is creating a model that can come into any community centre, any estate, and become functional. 3 key things. There's 7 E's, but the 3 key things: education, edify the nation. Edify an individual is the key to get control of their
But
mind.
the thing is, they're not getting that in the university.
Well, when they come home, we take care of it. What they get is the theory. We have to take care of the practical applies. Right? Employment. What type of employment? Let's keep the employment opportunities real. You may not be able to get the type of employment that you require. So let's focus on what you can do rather than what you want to do. Or the steps you have to take to get to the sacrifice you have to make to get there. Have a plan. Have a program with the information, the advice and the guidance towards that career development. Or the entrepreneurial spirit. Let's open that up. Why do you have to go and work for someone? Jobs are coming through and far between 0-hour contracts,
Work for yourself.
minimum wage. Why not be self-sufficient? How do you do it? Maybe you ain't confident enough to do it. Someone's got to press the button and ignite that talent inside of you. So these are the key factors that a community should be there to do. If the community is not prepared to do it, then who is prepared to do it? You see, I grew up on the basis that it takes a community to raise a child. All right? And what I've been hearing over and over and over again is it's down to the parents. 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 Many of these parents in the inner cities, whether they're private or social accommodation, they're doing 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet. Even the barristers, the accountants, the senior officials now are starting to feel it. Although they're profiling like it's okay, they're not okay. They're feeling it because their profession's taking a whack too. They're also going on strike when they have to.
Minimum wage.
Right? And those even not on the minimum wage, they're feeling it at the higher level too. That tells you the constraints on society are starting to take their toll. So, when we are in a community, do we really care who the higher earners are or who the lower earners are? Surely there should be a system in place by the community, for the community, that supports and provides within the environment that we have to exist in. Thereafter, it's down to the individual what they want to make of themselves, because you cannot do it for them. We're not social workers. But having the foundation with that community, now I deeply believe that is selling. All right? Teach an individual how to sell themselves. Get them to have self-belief, confidence, self-worth, self-respect. All these things are components of selling. All right? If I'm going to go out and meet friends, I've got to know how to sell myself, because if I don't know how to sell myself, people don't like me. They're not going to engage with me. If I'm going to go and sit in front of an employer, I need to have the skills to be able to sell my skill set towards that employer. That's selling. I don't have to go out and necessarily be a person who's going to get into sales as a profession, but I still need the basic foundation of selling skills or how to generate a job role. I always tell people, if you ain't getting a job, go door to door. People say to me, well, are you mad? Do you know how many people I've advised to do that go and get a job? Because a lot of employers, especially at the grassroots, can't employ, but they'll pay a decent wage. Or you can go in and build yourself up to a standard to get a decent income. And those jobs, a lot of the time, you find are much more sustainable because they value you.
It's like cleaning windows or cutting grass.
Whatever it is, it could be a professional operation. Right? You just don't know it. How many estate agents, accountancy firms on the high street? Do you understand my point? You just don't know it. So it's only when you can come to terms with who you are, what you are, have a level of identity. Absolutely. Then you know what time it is. Until such time. But what we must avoid is dependency. Depending on society. We've all had the ups and downs. Majority of my time, my entrepreneurial life has been what people would call a struggle. I've had 30 odd years, and if I've had 5-10 good years out of that, I've been blessed. But the journey's not over. It's only just begun. Because every day we get up, I have a chance. Because I should have been a statistic. I should have been doing life or dead. Incarcerated for life or dead. From what I was projected to be. How many other youngsters? Now they're ending up dead more and more. Now these, you think about it, you become a graduate and you're living on a social housing or in private housing around an area that's a hotspot. And you got to deal with that. You don't want to get out. You want to run as far as you can. You're not thinking, hold on, what can I do to create change in this community? What can I do to make this community a better environment? You're not thinking
Sometimes you're thinking about the community, they're thinking about themselves.
Absolutely. Well, that's how we're taught to think.
Like 50 cents, get rich or die trying.
That's how we're taught to think.
You know what I mean?
That is not the basis of it takes a community to raise a child. Because that is what they're taught, self-centered ideology, not human-centered ideology. So we have to spin that and get them to understand one hand cannot clap. It takes two hands to clap. Many hands make light work. You don't need to stay. You understand? Because the community itself becomes the force, becomes the vehicle to change. Then you can sit down with your councillors and politicians and say, get it done. And if you don't, you won't be in the next election. Because we run things. Things do not run us. We are the electorate.
Yes. So basically, the government is working for the people.
Absolutely.
Not vice versa.
Absolutely. Rather than the dependency mindset of I vote because of the club that I'm in. I don't believe in clubs. I believe in change. Socio-economic change. Real socio-economic change. And growing up in the UK, over the last 30 years, I've seen very little. What I've seen is a lot of funding vehicles. Right? Over 30 years.
So basically, just keep people stuck to a dummy.
Pretty much, to a point. I believe, well, the people themselves have to answer the question as well. But I think if the people themselves allow the state to claw down funding and put out funding for the same issues over and over again, and they don't come to recognize that, whose fault is that? The state is perceived to be serving a purpose. Right? But the state itself may be longing for change. But you will never know, because the people itself are stuck in a certain ideology, subservience.
That they're lazy or?
Well, that's another story to itself. But I believe in the awakening of the mind and empowerment of the individual. And this is why every community has to have an educational hub, an employment hub, and an enterprise hub. There are other areas as well, but in environment, engagement, community, so on. But those are the key components. Every person within that community should understand what it means to be educated, whether they are or not. But they value it, or what it means to be employed, or what it means to run your own business. There are three components. That way they can get ahead. Because those are the key components to be able to go out and have operate in an economic system. Right?
So to be self-sufficient and working for yourself, what's the kind of way you think you go about that? What's the way to go? How will you go about doing it?
Hunger beats skill. Like they say, the American ideology is get rich or die trying. Right? I don't have a problem with that, as long as the dying means that you can be reborn again. So, in a sense of get rich or die trying, if you try and you don't succeed, pick up the pieces and go again. So that technically, that project may have died. You may have died, but there's a rebirth because you've learned from that. So you may put that project to one side and you come again. So it's interpretation of the words. All right. Now we anticipate that means get shot and get blasted up and all that kind of
So
stupid.
basically, what you said, you just have confidence in yourself.
Absolutely, absolute
and do what
confidence.
you need to do to
Ultimate,
make things work.
ultimate, and universal ideology, above and beyond. All right, because nothing is done until it's over, and even when it's over, you don't know it's over because it's only just begun. It's infinite.
Process.
It's an infinite process. It's a journey. Life is a journey in itself. Right? And we should be seeking to put down a legacy. Right? Even if it's just your local community that remember you after you've passed on. At least you're remembered.
Yeah.
Right?
Real.
I don't want to care about the bricks and mortar and the mansion you built. That can be knocked down and bulldozed over. What I care about is what have you achieved, what have you given back to society. Right? And I'm not talking about handouts. I'm talking about the time and the sweat of your hands and the breath of your breath.
Knowledge as well.
Absolutely, is the key. Education, employment, enterprise. If I'm managed enough to grow myself out of an inner city and I get myself into position, then am I influencing the company I work for to be able to employ more people like me? We don't do that. We think, I'm all right, Jack. I don't want to take that chance, all right? Because I'm all right, I'm getting on. So let me move on to the next level. That's too much hard work. But we're forgetting what you're doing and relinquishing the ties of where you come from. So whatever you're aspiring to, it's not going to be you. You may think it's going to be you, but it's not. All right? We cannot disassociate ourselves from what we are and who we are. If you're not born with a silver spoon in your mouth, I'm not saying you can't acquire to have a silver spoon in your mouth, but at the same time, we need to put back. Those with a silver spoon in their mouth, they'll put back into their societies. That's what keeps their legacy going.
So basically, you have to work to get to that level there. So you can help the
Absolutely,
generations
absolutely,
after you.
absolutely. But the work is not necessarily financial.
Educational.
It's educational. All right, and that's what I deeply believe. Having that hub that you can contribute to, then it becomes easier on everybody. I don't feel that I'm having to carry a weight on my shoulder. I can deal with it in a certain way because I know everybody's contributing, or the majority are contributing. Many hands make light work. What's happening is very little hands are running communities now, and the little hands that are running it are relying on government funding to actually run it. Hold on, how many people in that community? If everybody put £1 a week, and you had 50,000 people in that community, which is a very small community in terms of London, that's £50,000 a week.
So what do you think? What's the problem? Why do you think everyone's just kind of changed and
Mindset.
slowed down?
Everybody's chasing but everyone's looking for what they ain't put down. Everyone thinks getting ahead means acquiring capital. That's what everyone thinks, or moving into a better postcode, because the postcode they're living in is volatile. Some of these postcodes that we live in, all right, let's take Notting Hill years ago and look at it today. All right,
Real.
the race riots and all these sort of things. We need to understand what Notting Hill looked like years ago. Look at it today. Hackney,
Well, now,
Brixton.
yeah, I know, it's like mad.
You with me?
Yeah. It's
All right,
it's
and
like
that'd be Harlesden
It's
next.
like Oxford Street now, isn't it? Yeah, I noticed it.
You understand my point?
Yeah.
So you can see the changes, the gentrification that's taking place. Now, I don't have a problem with more wealth coming into the community, but what's happening is that wealth is not being distributed equally. Those skill sets that are coming in are not sharing their skill sets. Although they're talking social enterprise in terms of hubs, artists, and so forth. The artists may come to a community, now they want to collect their own collective. How many kids out of the inner city become artists? I'm having that argument now. It's a quiet argument, but I know it's an argument that I'm going to win within the community I exist in. I don't have a problem with artists. I think it's a wonderful thing to do. But is that going to feed the young inner city kid? How does that art take them to the next level? Are you going to encourage them to become artists when they're firing guns and pulling knives and killing each other? Show me how art takes them out of that. I'm sure there are types of programs that can do that, but it's not necessarily going to get them paid. They want to get capital. This is what it's about. They're scared of the existence that they're scared of their own existence that they have to operate in. They're looking at their mums and dads working hard, thinking, you know what, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing 0-hour contract. I'm not doing minimum wage. I'm not busting my butt running my own business, going around cleaning windows, and I never see me dad or whatever. I'm not doing that. I'd rather get rich or die trying. Because I don't want that kind of life. Well, we need to understand them. You've got to have that appreciation of life. It may not happen now, but it's what you build. Like any successful business, it could take 10, 20, 30 years. Microsoft, Apple, all this. Look at the history of them. Any successful business, it's been a matter of decades for them to flourish. And that's what we need to teach them. That's not being taught. And that comes within the selling. Because teach them how to sell themselves. They're quick enough to go out and sell crack cocaine, marijuana, heroin, all these drugs that are not manufactured in the UK. Well, some of them are now, so I hear. But they're definitely not driving the hub of that community. What we need to manufacture is education. We need to hold the schools accountable as parents in that community. Not just listen to the schools and get blamed. The kids spend most of the times in the school, and then they're coming on and saying it's down to the parent. Oh, please.
And then the parents, and then the government tell you can't chastise your child when they're doing wrong.
Well, there's the end of it.
Yeah,
all right,
I mean,
they've stopped a lot of that. But growing up with that, I never say that's either here or there. But the bottom line is, where are we as a people when we're unable to hold onto our own community? If our own community is running away with us, then what you got? If you don't have the base of a community, what does that environment consist of? Where is it for that the challenging child or the lost parent who's struggling to hold on to keep their child on the straight and narrow? Where is the support? If they've got nowhere to tap into, it can be a very tiresome process.
Yeah, man, it's getting rough right now. Isn't
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think there's anyone who doesn't know someone who's been affected by sort of like knife crime or gun crime or some sort of crime. That's how bad
it is. Although it might be the minority, but they're making it like
absolutely. The media today are pushing that. And they need to be pushing more inner city kids are going to school, more inner city kids are breaking the mold, more inner city kids are staying on the straight and narrow, not falling by the wayside. Come on. Let's keep it simple.
Well. Yeah.
You understand? That will inspire the young kid who may want to go astray to think, you know what? I want to be part of the majority, not the minority.
Not the minority.
But the way they're making it sound like it's the majority of inner city kids that are creating crime,
and
selling
it's
drugs.
not like that at all.
Far from it.
No.
It's a minority, and it's generally you find it's inter-conflict. That means generally if someone's getting, not all the time, but generally if someone's getting hurt or within the knife or gun crime, it's generally the life that they're associated to. Not all the time. And this is where it becomes very, very detrimental to the community, because when the innocents have to pay for the guilties, especially when they're young kids, we need to wake up and pay attention. And that means something has to be done. All right? But you can't go out in a crusade. You can't go and be a martyr. What do? All right? We can only reach out to the companies out there and link the links to provide better jobs for our children. Hold the schools accountable. Parents need to come together and say, okay, I might not be able to go out to school every 5 minutes, but I'm going to be part of the Parents Association, create a community parents association that I may not be able to do, but we as a collective can hold the school accountable. All right? Then we can start recognizing, we're all protecting our interests. All right? Or how do we come together to start community enterprise? It might be opening up a community hall and starting like a jumble sale every once a month. It's an additional income. That additional income, even if it gives 20 or 30 pounds, it pays the electric forever or somebody. Times are that tough today. So we need to start thinking in that way as collectives. And within the collectivity, you'll find a way forward. We're always putting things like unity, social, the social issues like collectively social. No, you need economics to run social.
Right.
Because every economics has got a price. And if we keep going to the state to solve the social problems with the economics,
I know that we're begging
no
all
problem.
the time. We just keep begging them. We ain't going nowhere.
No solution.
Yeah.
Same things. It's worse now than when I was growing up. We don't have a better. When I was on a committee in East London, I sat down, I looked at the commander, and I said to him, "Why is it that 30 years down the road, I'm still having the same questions as when I was younger?" You were telling me then.
Worse now.
Well, they were telling them then. The Metropolitan Police was telling me as a youngster they're improving their customer service. 30 years later,
it's gotten worse.
You're still singing from the same hymn sheet. What is going on? Are you telling me you haven't improved your customer service, or telling me you have improved your customer service?
No.
Because if not, perhaps you need to change up your mantra. All right? And it starts with that.
I mean,
Right?
more to more find out, it's about integrating what's in
Absolutely, absolutely. It's about treating people as human beings. But you see, when you put on a uniform, and it's just not the Met, it can go right across the board. It can go into when you go into people going to the housing, people going to here, people, right anywhere. It's seen to be establishment, and there's a barrier to your level of human-centered ideology. You have lost it. Now, I'm not saying that you got to go and pay for people who don't want to work. That's ludicrous. I strongly believe that everybody should work in one way or the other. All right, but how do you get them doing that? Get them to have a sense of self-belief. Empower them. Set up things within their community. I'm not talking about necessarily just funded programs or whatever. Pay attention to what is really going on.
So the only thing is about the community themselves that needs
Absolutely.
to pay
It's always the community. So I think that's one of the downsides.
It's depending on the government.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the government's by the side. I don't even see the government. I see the people themselves. Anyone you got to blame the community itself. And you got to look in people who exist in the community. You got to say, what can I do? If I can give back 5% of my time.
So basically, what you're saying really is that the government, with social security and all that, is kind of making people lazy, so they don't.
To a point, I think it's there, and it needs to be there as a supplement. But at the same time, if someone's there too long, you have to ask the question. You know, if there's not some sort of progress going on, we need to ask the question. It shouldn't be a lifestyle. It should be a means of getting back on track.
Yeah.
You know, and they do try. I mean, I've seen some wonderful programs. I've been lucky enough to work in the private sector, the social sector, and the third sector, the public sector and the third sector. So I've seen it across the board. And I've been a provider to support jobs and whatever and so on, with young people, adults and whatever. And from what I see going on, it's down to the individual to hold certain things accountable. All right, take our Job Centre Plus, for instance. It's the largest recruitment service in Europe. I personally think if it was more proactive, competing with a lot of these private contractors, it could win a lot more business. So the concept is brilliant. The ideology is brilliant. But the delivery is piss poor.
So whose problem is that really? Is
Well,
it the government or is it the people?
Well, it's the government. It's the people's taxes going into it, so they should be holding the government more accountable to deliver a more proficient service, and then the government for mismanagement. All right. So you know, how do you expect somebody to govern if they're not being held accountable, or they're being held accountable at the election box? No, up to the election box, there are so many things that we can do to hold them accountable. That's why we have councillors. That's why we have MPs. We as a community can draw them to attention and make sure they get the job done. And that's what's not going on. You see, collective responsibility. That comes to mind.
So how are we going to deal with that? How are we going to make this thing happen? How are we going to go through this thing? You know what I mean?
Well, we have a model for economics, and that's what we do. We'll focus on replicating that as we go through.
So the model is what?
Well, education, making sure every community centre delivers us some form of education, especially when it comes to basic employability, understanding how you can progress into a college or a university to progress yourself. That level, that should be basic standard, just to have that information tank alone. All right? So if you want it, it's there. It's in place. Employment, what exists in your local environment, what your opportunities are. How do I write a CV? How do I get ahead? All these things the information advice are well, they're happening, but they're not. They're perceived to be happening. They're not really happening on the estates itself by the local people. They're happening with outside providers, as I was saying earlier. You understand? To get that, you've got to go on your local high street, not your community centre a lot of the time. And if it is happening in your local area, all right, you'll find those that are doing it quite effectively. At the grassroots.
It's few and far between.
Few and far between, because the community centres are inactive.
And a lot of them are closing down.
Absolutely. They're inactive. Right? They're not really becoming, or they're taking these models where we want to rent out and hire out. They're more interested in christenings and weddings because it brings an income than it is in providing a service to the community. Yeah, so you remember, that's generally run by your Tenants Management Association or your Residents Association, somewhere along the line. All right? Now, Tenants Management Association, a lot of them, especially they're getting contracts from the local council to control this and control that. They become like little businesses on the within your local community. You understand? If they're doing it correctly, some are doing it very well.
And they get
But some are
funded-
doing it very
they get
poorly.
funded from
Well, they're taking over the money from government. Yeah, they're getting managing to have those contracts. So absolutely, that's the key. And also been charging. They have a private arm where they can charge towards hiring at the community centre and so forth. But what about that individual who really wants to put something back in their community? Wants to do something within the community? It might be something as simple as yoga or a health class or whatever. Someone wants. Surely they should be given an opportunity to deliver, without being charged some sort of astronomical cost.
And I suppose that when they go to the community now or community centre, they're going to charge the black person.
Well, a lot of them do. Not all.
Yeah.
All right? Many housing and social councils do, but then some don't. And you find those are the more effective ones. Everything's got its issues, everything's got its pitfalls and its hurdles, but surely the communities that engage more effectively, I think you'll find there'll be more to give back. All right? And that's what it should be, and they should be recognised and rewarded and put up there as the beacons for others to learn from. That's the objective. It's not happening. All right?
So how can we rectify and change that?
Well, it's down to the people, isn't it?
Down to the people.
You got to want to know
Not
it
the
if you really want to
government,
know.
but the people.
Can't rely on the government. The government is just changes like the weather. Every 4 or 8 years or 12 years, or whatever it may be. Politicians today, they wear whatever badge suits them. But if you hold them accountable, they will come correct.
Yes. Because they're working for the
Because
people.
they want their next vote. So you force them into action. And you can't blame them in the sense, because I might start at wanting to do something, I'll bust my butt and I'll find I've got a lethargic constituency that ain't really overly interested. I could lose interest very quickly. But if I've got one that's knocking on my door every 5 minutes, I'm forced into action.
Of course.
I've got to pay attention,
For real.
or I'm not getting voted in again.
Yeah.
I'm a human being as well. And that's what we need to
And you've
understand.
got your agenda. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the key. You can't lose your way. Yeah? That's the objective. Are you filming this?
Yeah.
Ooh.